Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Well, welcome everybody to the Must Read Alaska Show. I'm your host, John Quick, coming to you live from somewhere in Alaska. We want to wish that everybody had an amazing Thanksgiving. I know I did. We had a great time with the family, cooked a turkey, got the mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, you name it. We were cooking it. And we also had a very awesome event here in Nikiski. I'm sure folks all around Alaska had some cool events they went to over the weekend. I'm one of the owners here at Nikiski Hardware and Supply, and we had an awesome weekend. This is our third annual time we've done it, where we partner up with a nonprofit, local nonprofit, and we hand out 200, 300, 400, 500 gifts, depending on which year, to kids all around the community. Santa shows up, sits down for 4 hours, and just passes out gifts until kids stop coming. And we probably had about 1,000 people at our Christmas extravaganza this weekend, which for a teeny little Nikiski was a huge success. So spread that love and cheer this holiday season. And, little things go a long ways, and $5 brand new toys for kids who may not otherwise have got a new toy. Man, that's a priceless thing to watch. So we hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, and today we have some very exciting topics to talk about. But first, I want to remind people that if you listen, watch, or read Must Read Alaska and you want to help keep the lights on, feel free to go to mustreadalaska.com. On the right-hand side there's a donate button. And $50, $100, $5, hey, heck, $5,000. Every little penny counts, and you can help keep the lights on here at Must Read Alaska. We are not funded by shady, conglomerates that are trying to skew people's news opinions. We are funded by the everyday Alaskan that donates $100 at a time. So we want to thank you for, if you're out there listening and you are one of our folks that keep the lights on here at Must Read Alaska, we want to thank you. And feel free to give us a review on iTunes if you listen to the Must Read Alaska show. You don't even have to type a review. You can literally just click on 5 stars, and it helps out the cause. So without further ado, I want to welcome our co-host and editor of Must Read Alaska, Suzzane Downing. How's your day going?
It's gone great, and I hope everybody's staying warm and is nailing down those things that are rattling around every time we get one of those temblors from the earthquakes. I don't know. Did you feel that down in Nikiski at all?
I did, and I forgot to mention that I also got Elon Musk's new internet, Starlink.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I got that. Me and some friends we got on the pre-sale list, a long time ago. And it finally came this last week, and truthful, review, it hasn't been everything I'd hoped for in Elon Musk's internet. So it broke down. It had a hardware malfunction, and they have to send me a new one. But my friend who has it, he's had nothing but great things to say about it. They have the fastest internet in Alaska overnight. Elon Musk wins that award. And so in 3 weeks, I'll be excited to get my second one and try it again, and hopefully no hardware malfunction.
Yeah. Well, it was actually the story that we ran several days ago about Starlink coming to Alaska and have these satellites that are in low orbit, and they have hundreds of satellites now in low orbit around the Earth, and some of them are pointing down toward Alaska. And in fact, the entire Arctic seems to be covered pretty well now with these satellites. Now, these satellites have a special quality. They are able to talk to each other through laser. So if you're kind of hooked up to one satellite, it can kind of relay signals to the next satellite until it gets to a ground station. And one of these days, I really want to have Sean Williams on our podcast to tell us about how this works, because he's in this space. He works in this space in Alaska, and he is extremely knowledgeable about how all of this stuff works with these small little satellites that are no bigger than the size of like a refrigerator.
That's crazy.
I'm glad you had a good Thanksgiving, John, and I'm glad that they're into Kiski, you're starting to get higher speed internet, and that hopefully things will be better. Because I know for you, when I send you a photo, you say, well, I can't look at the photo until I hang up the call, because the internet is so fragile there.
The internet will drop.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, this last, I don't know, weekend or whatever, Friday, we saw the press release. I want to just remind folks, the Senate has organized. Suzzane and I are going to be going over that. But first, I want to read this kind of press release-esque post from the Democratic Party of Alaska, just to kind of set the stage, because, man, Republicans got outsmarted again. This is what the Alaska Democrats said from their Facebook. They said this: "We did it. After making gains, Democrats have flipped the Senate from full Republican control to a moderate bipartisan coalition." And man, when I saw this, I thought, they've done it again. They've outsmarted us.
Oh yeah, this is totally Lucy in the football.
It's kind of crazy. What are your thoughts, Suzzane, for folks that, there's people that don't even know that the Senate has organized yet. What would you tell folks that are hearing this for the first time?
Well, the Senate has been organizing for a couple of weeks, and based on what they thought that the results of the election would be, the election results were finalized on the 23rd, the night before Thanksgiving, and they will be certified on the 29th. So that'll be tomorrow. They'll be certified. But they kind of knew what was going on, so they had already decided that they would have a quote bipartisan coalition kind of caucus, and they have a bipartisan caucus where they kicked out 3 Republicans, and now they have 9 Democrats and 8 Republicans in this caucus, which means it is a Democrat controlled caucus. And then they installed a Republican Senate president in Gary Stevens, who's had a very, very long career in public service, and he's done this before. He's been involved in many bipartisan kind of coalitions before in his many years, and so he's the Senate president. And then they appointed committees, and so although there were 11 Republicans elected to the Senate, there are only 8 that are part of the majority. And who they kicked out? They kicked out Senator Rob Myers of Fairbanks. And now Rob Myers, you remember, he won that seat a couple of years ago from John Coghill, because John Coghill was seen as too moderate, and that district wanted somebody a little bit more conservative and sticking with the conservative principles. Also, John Coghill had been the prime sponsor for Senate Bill 91, which was the crime spree bill, and people were really angry with him about that. So they kicked out Rob Meyer out of the coalition caucus, and they kicked out the current Senate Majority Leader Shelley Hughes from Palmer, Mat-Su area, and they kicked out Mike Shower, who's from Wasilla. So they kicked out the people they saw as the 3 most conservatives. Now, then they hook up with all these committee assignments, and they give all the committees to the Democrats. So here you have finance. You've got 1 Republican and 2 Democrats who are co-chairing finance. And then Rules Committee, you have Senator Bill Wielechowski has the Rules Committee, but they not only gave him the Rules Committee, they also gave him Transportation Committee. So he gets to double up on his chairmanship. This is just brilliant on their part, on the Democrats' part. And Legislative Council will be Senator L.V. Gray Jackson of Anchorage. And then Health and Social Services, they gave it to a Republican, but they actually they gave it to Senator David Wilson of Wasilla. And he may be in his last term now. He has to run in another 2 years, I think. And I don't think he'll be able to make it in Wasilla after he's made this deal. And I think that he knows that, and that's why he went ahead and did it. Senator-elect James Kaufman will be the vice chair of Health and Social Services. But then they put in the new freshman Matt Clayman as the Democrat, who will be the chair of Judiciary. And then the only committee that actually has Republican chairs other than that Health and Social Services is resources, and they made that a co-chair position between Cliff Bishop and Senator-elect Kathy Giessel. And Kathy Giessel used to be the Senate president, and then she was unelected, and now she's been reelected. And she'll have to stand for reelection in a couple of years as well, because a lot of these seats have to cycle through in another 2 years because of the redistricting, forced so many of them into this extra election. Other than that, you've got, a Democrat running state affairs, a Democrat running community regional affairs, and then your friend Jesse Bjorkman, who's the senator-elect from Kenai, who is the NEA representative down there. I know you're just dying to talk about this. So Labor and Commerce has essentially a labor representative as the chair of that.
Who's been a union leader.
Yeah, he's a union leader with the NEA. And so you can see where this is going to go. This is going to be a bye-bye your permanent fund. I mean, this is really, really going to go badly. Again, I said transportation, Bill Wielechowski, and then education, Senator-elect Loki Tobin. She's the one who was rigged into place there by Tom Begich. When Tom Begich was the senator, he did not announce that he was withdrawing from the race until the last hour of the last day to file. And Loki Tobin, who was his Senate aide, filed in that seat. So they kind of rigged it so that he pulled out and she filed at the exact same time, and nobody else could get in there, which is why she's in there. And she'll have the education committee. And so basically you've got 9 Democrats and 8 Republicans, and then 3 sitting on the outside. Now, they said they were sitting on the outside because they voted against the budget last year, but that is an absolute lie. This is just so phony. What's happened is the Senator Hughes, Senator Myers, and Senator Shower voted for the budget, and actually it was Senator Stedman and Bishop who voted against it. And so they're saying that that Shower and Hughes and Myers voted against it when actually Stedman, who's now co-chair of finance, voted against it. So they're just telling a bunch of lies about why they excluded these 3. But let's face it, they are the 3 most conservative in the Senate, legislators in the Senate. And so that's how that's going to go. We're going to have a very moderate Senate, and I think that this is going to be really hard for the governor to deal with, because they're going to give him a huge budget this year.
Yeah, it's going to be if people thought the last 2 years, 3 years has been a cluster, just hold on to your hat, because this next year is going to be ludicrous. It's going to be like a Desperate Housewives meets it's just going to be bad. It's going to be so chaotic, so much drama. It's going to be like daytime TV and reality shows all combined into one awful thing that nothing ever gets accomplished, but somehow more money gets spent than they did the previous year.
We have fewer students, and they're going to want to spend a lot more money on education because they're getting such bad results. So let's spend some more money. And we have the second worst results in the United States now. When I went to high school here, I don't want to tell you when, but it was a long time ago, we had the second best schools in the nation, and now they are the second worst. So something is going on, and it's something has really changed in a couple generations here. But in any case, I'm not feeling real optimistic. We knew that how this was going to go when all of this news started coming out from their press secretary. They hired the Senate Democrats' press secretary to be their press secretary. So and they're going to let the Republican majority's press secretary go. She won't have a job when they come back. They're not offering her a job. They're offering it to the Democrat. So this tells you everything you need to know, folks. Alaska has kind of gone blue on us. The Democrats should be very proud. They basically rigged the U.S. Senate election to get Lisa Murkowski reelected against what the Republican Party wanted. They've got a Democrat in the Congress now, and now they flipped the state Senate to Democrat control.
Yeah, if you have one of these Republican senators in your district, and some of these districts are more purple than others, but especially Senator Wilson and Senator Bjorkman, if you have those two people, particularly in your district, and they are trying to give you the mouth talk of, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to, we're going to be shaking hands and making things happen and everybody's going to love each other. Just remember this quote from the Alaska Democrats from their official Facebook page. We did it. After making gains, Democrats have flipped the Senate.
That's what you need to know.
That's what you need to remember if you live in these two very conservative districts in the Valley with Senator Wilson and Kenai Soldotna Nikiski with Senator Jesse Bjorkman. These folks need to face the harsh realities of what they just did. And this is going to be a binding caucus with a Democrat majority. And so your conservative Republican voice is silenced. Nothing conservative is going to happen. If this is your representative in Kenai Soldotna Nikiski or in the Valley, zero conservative things are going to be happening because your senator just joined a Democrat-controlled binding caucus. Yeah. Let that sink in, because they will wordsmith you. They will tell you the 17 reasons why this is going to be better than anything that's ever happened to Alaska. And for some folks that are center left or center, maybe they like that. But for the folks in these two particular districts it's the majority of these people are registered Republicans, conservatives. A lot of folks are not going to like this. And
it's not what they ran on. And we've also got James Kaufman, who joined that group as well. And we have others. We kind of expected Kathy Giesel would, because we know that she's completely flipped. She's no longer really a Republican. She's just kind of faking it there. But a little disappointed with James Kaufman jumping over. Very disappointed with David Wilson jumping over. And I kind of expected Jesse Bjorkman would, because I know his background and I know kind of what he seems to stand for a lot. This is not going to be a fun year for Republicans in the legislature. I don't have real high hopes for the House either. I've got to tell you, it's not looking good, John, in terms of the organization in the House. It looks like the Democrats may also flip the House, even though there's a 21-member majority that is Republican majority. But one of those members is David Eastman, and a judge has prohibited his candidacy from being certified. So he can't be certified because the judge has said he can't be certified. Okay, he was elected with over 50% from his district, but a judge has said until his case is resolved, which is the case brought against him by Randall Kowalski and the Northern Justice Project. And they say that he is not qualified to be in the legislature because he's a member of the Oath Keepers. And the Oath Keepers were involved in the surge into the Capitol and the disruption of the electoral process on January 6th, 2021. And because of his membership in the Oath Keepers, that makes him culpable. And therefore, he is disloyal to the Constitution. And therefore, he cannot serve as a legislator according to our Constitution. That's the lawsuit. And the judge has said until that lawsuit is resolved, Eastman can't be seated as a legislator. That means they can't really organize their 21, even if they wanted him in there. He's kind of on the outs anyway, because he is so far right, and people are not able to work with him very well. I mean, they have a hard time with him because he's so independent minded. He will not follow any group. If you say something's red, he'll say no, it's blue. If you say it's blue, he'll say it's red. He's kind of a natural born contrarian. But that leaves a very weak majority. And I think that means when you have a weak majority, I think that means that people start making deals with the Democrats. And I'd put money on it right now that we'll have a Democrat-run House, and that we might even see Louise Stutson as Speaker again. I've heard that she's gone over to the Democrats and said she will not organize with the Republicans because there's two Republicans she can't organize with, and one of them is Eastman. I don't know who the other is at this point, but she said no, there's two people I can't organize with. So she's gone over, and I believe there's one other person who's gone over to the Democrats as well. So
yeah.
A Republican state, we vote 65% Republican, and looks like they ran the table on us.
Oh yeah, the well played by the Democrats, because you have
Yep.
outsmarted the Republicans once again.
Yep.
You have tricked them into thinking that if they come along with your team, that they'll have a say. And we've known just based off the last 4 years that that's not true, but you still keep tricking us and winning. So congratulations to that. But I think a lot of folks online are wondering, what do they do? I think I get some messages. I see the comments. What can we do? What can we do? How can we? A lot of people from the Valley or the Kenai Peninsula are wondering, what the heck can they do? Because they have they're in conservative districts, and their senators just flipped to basically the Democrats. And I think the easiest thing you could do, if you got a job, you're taking care of kids, you're running kids to hockey, you're cooking dinner, send emails, do phone calls, and show up to public meetings when you can. And remember to be respectful, because these people, even if you don't agree with them, they ain't going to listen to you if you're screaming in their face. And so try to be respectful, but be, fierce, bold, and kind, but be relentless, because these two particular folks need to be reminded that they live in conservative districts, and siding with the Democrats is not going to be is going to be something that's going to be taken seriously. So be relentless, call, email, and keep doing it, but be respectful.
Right. Well, and for these guys, an election is just 2 years away. So I don't think for Bjorkman, I don't think he has to stand for election in 2 years, but I think Wilson does. I think maybe Kaufman does. So it is, we have to just turn around and regroup, and we have to decide if we're going to give up or if we're going to keep fighting. So I know it's a tough pill to swallow to see Alaska going Democrat like this, but everything changes. I mean, if you look back in the 1970s, early 1970s, there was a group that came up to Alaska. They were associated with the Yippies and the hippies, and they did this thing called the Ad Hoc Democrats, and they took over the Democratic Party, and they were the far left Democrats, anti-war type people from the 70s. They actually took over the Democratic Party for a long period of time, at least, I don't know, it was 3 or 4 years. Some of those people are still around today, very, very involved in Democratic politics, and they're all gray hairs now. But the same thing goes on throughout politics, is that groups will come in, will take over, and then other groups will come in and take over, and none of it's permanent, because politics is so dynamic, and it's always changing. Leadership changes, philosophies change a little bit, and then of course you have to always go to war with the army you have. And so right now our army in the Senate looks pretty weak, and it's pretty disappointing, but I don't think any of us who donated any candidates, any of those Republican candidates are going to get a refund. I don't think that's how that works either.
So Suzzane, tell me about this. You've written a couple of times about this cryptocurrency king who has fallen on hard times. That it's somehow
in his $3 million mansion in the Bahamas. He's fallen.
And this is linked to Alaska. Please tell folks how this is linked to Alaska, because you'll get folks that'll be listening to this podcast that maybe even haven't seen or read any of the stories we've done online. So fill folks in on how this billionaire who's fallen on hard times is linked to Alaska.
Well, I've written about this extensively ever since November 11th, when the cryptocurrency exchange FTX collapsed and filed for bankruptcy. Chapter 11 allows them to reorganize, to keep your money, to keep it, and they had a run on the bank, basically. They had a run on the currency exchange. And so they wanted to preserve it so they could reorganize. So they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they've been scamming money from investors for a couple of years here. And Sam Bankman-Fried is sort of considered to be was the next Morgan Stanley kind of a guy. He's this grubby guy who just, he had everybody fooled. He was very, very smart. He very smart money-wise, and he was very tied into through his college internship through a group called Sequoia Capital. And Sequoia Capital is the group that invested some of the Alaska Permanent Fund money into this FTX scam, which was is another angle of it. But what I wrote about this weekend is, of course, if people have been following the stories, they know that Sam Bankman-Fried donated the maximum amount to Senator Lisa Murkowski's campaign, donated the maximum amount to Mary Peltola and the Alaska Democratic Party, and Democratic parties all over the country, and Democrats all over the country. $40 billion it was what he's pouring into the different coffers in the recent election cycle, second only to George Soros in terms of funding for Democrats. And then he was also funding ProPublica. So basically, he's trying to reshape the world and through politics to get all Democrats elected. And then he wanted to control the narrative in the media. So he's funding ProPublica, which is a left-leaning news organization, foundation style, that makes grants to newspapers and to radio stations and such. And ProPublica granted money to the Anchorage Daily News. And then, of course, the Anchorage Daily News goes about writing this series, in which case they're implicating Mike Dunleavy for the fact that there are not enough troopers in these villages that have like 25 or 50 people in them, that you don't have a trooper in there, shame on you, or you don't have a village public safety officer, or the village public safety officers you have criminal records, which all has been true for a real long time. And let me tell you, folks, if you live in a logging camp out in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to have a trooper out there. That's how it goes. You know, the smaller communities just don't have them. And so it's just interesting to see that all of these things are connected. Now, the money from Sam Bankman-Fried to the FTX Foundation, to ProPublica, to Anchorage Daily News is not a straight line. It doesn't go like that. It basically is the Anchorage Daily News got a grant from ProPublica before Sam Bankman-Fried made that gift to ProPublica. And their money came from other sources. In other words, ProPublica was being funded by George Soros. ProPublica was also being funded, and these funds were being shuttled through to the Anchorage Daily News for their reporting by John and Susan Arnold of Texas. These are the same people that are funding all of the ballot measure 2 kinds of things around the country, including Alaska. Alaskans for Better Elections, one of their main donors is like they're getting funds from Unite America and U.S. Action and all these things that are funded by John and Susan Arnold. John and Susan Arnold are trying to remake elections so that Democrats can get elected. So they're trying to change, the election. They're trying to change who gets elected and get Democrats in there, and then they're funding the news organizations who are following all this stuff. There is no actual word for this. We need to come up with one, John. And I keep thinking it's like the Democrat newspaper industrial complex. I don't know what the word is. I'm calling it a cabal, because it is so incredibly tightly wound. These guys are all in it together. And I don't think there's any structure to it. There's nothing like we're going to give you the money and you have to write about this one thing. Although they do make proposals before they get the money. They have to write a proposal, say what we're going to write about. We're going to write about how Alaska is a lawless place and it's all Mike Dunleavy's fault. Okay, we'll give you a grant for that. And so it kind of works like that. But and of course they want a Pulitzer for that, because of course they're all tied in. The Pulitzer organization, ProPublica, and the individual newspapers, they all want to be part of the Cool Kids Club. And so they're doing the kind of work that they will get positive reinforcement for. It's shocking. Oh, by the way, I've got a column I put up this morning from the Washington Free Beacon, and I hope people take a look at it, because it really expresses what a lot of us who have been following us are thinking. Who are these people? You look at the list of people involved in these scandals, and they're all tied into, the Epsteins and Alice Rogoff and the Bill Clinton and Sam Bankman-Fried, and you've got the whole list of really people doing horrible things, and they're all part of this big Democratic machine. It's worth reading the Washington Free Beacon column that we posted this morning, John. It certainly expresses some of my shock as I have been digging into this over the weekend. I've spent 3 or 4 days really looking into this ProPublica link with the ADN and how it's all tied in back to this George Soros and FTX Foundation stuff.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I look at is all this one source funding, behind closed curtains while nobody's looking, creates a sense that these papers even more so don't need to act like normal businesses would, meaning be competitive, have an ear to the ground of what your consumers are thinking. They can pretty much, these newspapers can basically give the everyday person the middle finger because they're being funded by 1 or 2 people. Right. No more do they have to have, no more does the Anchorage Daily News have to have a circulation of 30,000 people. They can basically have no circulation and figure out how to be funded by these very liberal, left-leaning grant things.
That's exactly right.
Tell all their advertisers to go pound sand because their measly $1,000 a month doesn't matter to them when they're getting 3 checks cut to them every year for $3 million a piece or something like that. And so it just breeds even more a sense of out of touch with the everyday person, because you don't have to be. If daddy's cutting you a check every month, you don't have to really care about what's happening in the world or what it looks like to actually earn a buck. The paper here on the Kenai Peninsula, their circulation's pretty much down to nothing. And people just don't care about papers. Yet these organizations keep printing the news because they're being funded by people that do not live here in Alaska. And I think
so the Anchorage Daily News, for their funding that they got through the FTX Foundation, it didn't come from FTX Foundation, it came from essentially George Soros and the John and Susan Arnolds of the world and some of these other organizations that are on the ProPublica tax filings, which I found. So their relationship with ProPublica is such that ProPublica loves the Anchorage Daily News because that series they did, and the headlines are, it's all Mike Dunleavy's fault. It's all Mike. It's just over and over again. They were just campaigning against Mike Dunleavy the whole time. But it's fascinating because they love the Daily News because that won them a jointly shared Pulitzer Prize. And then you get the Pulitzer Prize and you go to somebody like Sam Bankman-Fried and say, we win Pulitzers for our coverage, and look at our coverage. And he looks at the coverage. That's exactly the kind of coverage he supports. And so he's going to tell his foundations, which, by the way, some of Sam Bankman-Fried's foundations aren't even listed with the IRS. They have not even filed their, they have no EIN, they have no website. You talk about dark money. This whole thing is so incredibly deep and scammy. I'll be just surprised if I live through the coverage that I make, that I write of it. Somebody will come out and take me out in the dark. It's just like put a bolt through my head because I'm writing about this. It's these guys are absolute. It's criminal what's going on out there. So everybody do go to the Must Read Alaska front page right now and take a look at the story that we've got up there. We've got one on FTX's foundation funded ProPublica, and then ProPublica is funding the Anchorage Daily News. The Anchorage Daily News is what they were doing to Mike Dunleavy, what they did to Sean Parnell, which is run stories that were pure campaign stories against him, and they try to pass themselves off as news. The Free Beacon analysis says, what in the actual F is wrong with these people? And that is kind of when you start digging into this, that is exactly what you'll sort of come away with, is like, these people think they're so smart and they're smarter than the rest of us, and we're just a bunch of rubes out here. But there's a lot of people out there involved in this that have absolutely no morals at all.
Yep. Well, we are coming to an end. It's been 30 minutes here. So you got any last minute thoughts?
I'll get some more stories up today. Keep an eye on the House organization. I know that they've had some meetings. They had some meetings over the weekend, and they're probably going to meet today as well. And I guess they've kind of got to wait until this whole thing is settled out tomorrow with the certification of the election. We'll have some stories on that, the election being certified. I'll also have a story up, John, about how well Mary Peltola did in this race and some of the numbers from the race, and why our actual voting numbers are really down this year, quite significantly down, the actual numbers and percentage as well. So tune into mustreadalaska.com, and there'll be more stories today.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Must Read Alaska show today. And feel free, like I said, if you listen to our show and you like it, make sure you leave a 5-star review on the iPhone. All you got to do is click on the 5 stars. You don't even have to leave a actual written review. And same with the Android phone. All you got to do is click on 5 stars. So, and if you're into apps on your phone, maybe you got a Android phone or an iPhone, all you got to do is go to the App Store, type in Must Read Alaska. Right there, there's our app. It's free to use. We put a lot of time, money, and resources into that. Thousands and thousands of people use it every day. We're very fortunate to have that. And we just want to thank folks during this holiday season to be thinking about us, folks who have thought about us in their year-end giving. We want to thank you. And folks who maybe haven't even thought about year-end giving yet, make sure to keep Must Read Alaska in your thoughts, because we'd appreciate $5, $10, $100. Every dollar helps keep the lights on here at Must Read Alaska. So until next time, I'm John Quick signing off from somewhere in Alaska. Thanks so much.